on our mats. So the last couple of times we've been starting with lying down on our mats, but today we're going to sit. So you just want to come to a comfortable seat position and take a few deep breaths. There we go. Go ahead and let your breath kind of settle into your chest. See if it can expand a little bit further down into your lungs and rib cage. If you would like, you can think about your heart behind your chest or inside of your chest, under the protection of your sternum and your rib cage. Think about opening that up just a little bit further, allowing that breath to come into your heart space and really expand and open it. Normally we're focusing on relaxation, and so we're focusing on breathing deep into that belly space. And so if that's what you need today, feel free to do that. But today we're going to try a little bit of a different focus with really focusing on our heart, expanding and opening that chest area. As you sit here, check in with your tailbone, making sure that is softened and down, that your shoulders are relaxed and not bunched up around your ears. Thinking about extending and elongating your neck, reaching up toward the ceiling with the crown of the head. And again, just taking a few deep breaths. And as you pay attention to your breath and allow it to kind of regulate itself, just a couple of notes for us as we move throughout this practice. We're going to be doing a number of heart openers is what we call them, so chest expansions. For some people, that can be emotionally triggering. And so if you feel yourself if there's tears that kind of come into your eyes, or if you feel an emotion kind of bubbling up for you, feel free to just stop and take care of yourself in that moment. Sometimes that doesn't happen for people, but I just wanted to give you kind of a heads up about that. And to start, we're going to go ahead and do some easy twists. So from our seated position here, we're going to start to take one arm across our body to the opposite knee, one hand behind for a gentle twist. Thinking about sitting tall on your inhale, and then twisting a little deeper on your exhale. So we're not straining here, but we are challenging ourselves a little bit. And then releasing that, we're going to go ahead and take the other side. So twisting the other arm across the body towards your knee. Opposite arm behind for support. Again, inhaling and sitting nice and tall. Exhaling and twisting more deeply into this pose. And then on your next exhale, go ahead and release that forward. We're going to do some side bends. So we're going to take one hand to the mat, inhale, the other up overhead, and then exhale off to the side. Thinking about extending the space between the bottom of your rib cage and your hip. So really opening up that side body. If you'd like, you can go ahead and round down to center, or you can just simply come back to center and then come back up. We're going to go ahead and take the other hand down to the mat, inhale, arm up. And then off to the side. Again, thinking about increasing that distance between the bottom of your rib cage and that other hip. Breathing. And if you'd like, you can round down to the center, or you can just come back to the center and round yourself up here. All right, just some seated cat-cows. We're going to take our palms to the front side of our knees, and then we're going to lean forward, open up the chest, looking up. And then as we exhale, we're going to tuck our chin, lean back onto our tailbones, and then arch our back. Following your own breath here. So inhaling as you open up the chest. And then exhaling as you round back, really stretching between those shoulder blades. Maybe doing 5 or 6 of those at your own pace. Those nice, easy motions. Just exploring the possibilities with our spine here. When you've done 5 or 6 of those, go ahead and come back to center. We're going to do some barrel rolls, is what we call them. So you can either leave your hands on your knees, or if you need to, you can take your hands down to the mat to help provide a little bit of support here. Either way is fine. We're going to simply leave our spine as straight as we can for now, leaning forward, and then kind of drawing a big circle with our upper body. So we're going to do about 3 on one side. Snap, crackle, pop for me over here. Body's getting back into alignment. Maybe one more big circle, just nice and slow. Working that waistband a little bit. And then once you've done 3 that direction, then go ahead and reverse your direction. I mentioned that doing a lot of heart openers can sometimes kind of bring on that emotional response. And that's important for us to recognize those things, because our relationship with our emotions shapes our brains and our bodies and the health of our relationships and so many things. So when you're ready, you're going to come back to center, leaving one foot in front of the other. We're going to place our hands on the mat and then walk our hands forward for a forward fold here. And so, as I was saying, that emotional relationship is important because of how it affects all the different areas of our lives. And so we need to be able to make friends with all of our emotional states, not just the ones where we feel really comfortable, where we feel like that's really acceptable, but actually befriend all of our different emotions. When you're ready, you can start to walk those hands back towards center, switching whichever leg is in front. Now placing our hands back on the mat or on the floor and walking those hands forward once more. You need to find a little sway in this position. Feel free to do that. If you want a little deeper stretch on one side or the other. And then we're going to go ahead and walk those hands back to center, leaving our legs as they are. We're going to tuck our chin down to our chest. Stretching out the back side of the neck. And then go ahead and roll the left ear toward the left shoulder, opening up the side neck. If you'd like, you can make a little fist with your right hand and place it in the small of your back, deepening that stretch. If you'd like even a deeper stretch, you can take the opposite hand to your head and help it to gently, gently pull down. And then go ahead and release all of that back to center. We're going to tip that chin back down to our chest again. This time rolling the right ear toward the right shoulder, opening up the side neck. Making a little fist with that left hand, taking that to the small of your back. Pulling down on that left shoulder to deepen the stretch. And if you want even a little further, taking that opposite hand to the outside edge of your head there to help deepen it. Noticing your breath again. Where is it? Is it regulated? Just bringing your attention back to it. And releasing all of that back down. We're going to do one more chin to chest, stretching out the neck space once more. And go ahead and round that neck up. We're going to do some shoulder rolls today. So taking those shoulders up towards your ears and then back and down. Again, maybe doing 5 or 6 of these in one direction. And then once you've done those, go ahead and reverse the direction. Continuing to pay attention to your breath. And letting those shoulders kind of float down away from your ears. We're going to go ahead and take our arms straight out to either side. And we're going to do some arm circles. And so we're going to start really small here. And then just allow that motion to get slower and bigger. And then exploring what feels good on your shoulders. Maybe where there might be some sticky spots. Let the last one be really, really big if you can. And then coming back down and shaking out those arms. We're going to do that again, this time in the opposite direction. So extending arms out to either side. Go ahead and reverse your direction. So starting small, still breathing. Getting bigger and bigger as we go. Slowing those motions down. Again, exploring the edges of what's possible with your shoulders. Letting the last one be really, really big, and then releasing those down. If you need to kind of shake out those shoulders, feel free to do that, or roll them around a little bit. We're going to do a chest expansion here. So we're taking our hands behind us, interlacing those fingers, and then pulling down at our tailbone, opening up the chest. If you'd like, you can look up toward the ceiling. Taking about 3 deep breaths here in this pose. Still paying attention to that breath. And then if you would like, you can start to bring those hands up behind you, folding forward gently. Again, just as far as feels comfortable to you. Some of you might have a lot of flexibility in your shoulders, and so you might be able to bring those arms up really high, even over top of your head. For some of us, our shoulders are a little tighter, and so we can just kind of keep those hands behind us, but up away from our tailbones. And then releasing those arms down, releasing the hands, shaking out those arms, letting the blood flow back into those fingers. If you want to do some widen your fingers and then clench your fists, do that a couple of times if you can. Then placing your hands on the mat in front of you, you're going to pull yourself up onto all fours. And for here, we're going to make sure that our wrists are underneath our shoulders, that our knees are underneath our hips. And then we're going to take our right shoulder toward our right hip. So we're contracting in through the right side. We're allowing a lot of space on the left side of the body right now. Taking a deep breath. Then switching sides. So first coming back to neutral. Then taking that left shoulder towards your left hip. And holding the pose, but not holding your breath. Taking one more deep breath here. And then coming back to neutral. And now we're going to roll through some cat-cows. So if you like, you can inhale and drop your belly, allow the tailbone to come up, allow the head to come up. Exhale and arch that back up toward the ceiling. Inhale, really thinking about opening up the chest, almost like your two front arms were gates and your heart was going to come through that gate. Again, just doing 5 or 6 of these at your own pace. You might notice some other things in your body, so just go ahead and pay attention to those things. Giving it your loving attention, not judging it, but just noticing it. Coming back to neutral, we are going to go ahead and walk our hands back towards our knees. We're going to cross our feet and then come back and sit down at the back edge of our mat. Here we're going to take, I'm going to start with my left leg down here. I'm going to cross this right foot over top of the left knee and draw that knee in toward my chest. So we're stretching out that right hip area, the outer hip. And then when we're ready, we can go ahead and release that down. We're going to switch sides. So right leg down, crossing that left foot over top of the knee, twisting and bringing that knee in toward your chest. And about 3 deep breaths here. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and release that down. This time we're going to sweep our knees, or sweep our feet to the side, come up onto our knees, and then tuck our toes. And we're going to come up onto our feet. We're going to bring our feet and our knees as close as we possibly can. And I saw, this was a new pose for me. The way that it was taught to me was jump rope pose, where you, now I have to remember it. So you take one hand behind you, you loop your other arm, you're supposed to loop it around the front of your knees, but I don't think I can do that. So I think I'm just going to put both hands behind me. Oh, you all, I'm going to have to go look at this again because I can't remember exactly how it goes. look up jump rope pose when you get home, because I can't remember. Basically, your arms become a little bit of a jump rope, and you kind of wind it around your body this way or this way. I can't remember exactly right now. So we can do our arm circles. We can do our arm circles. So from here, we're going to go ahead and lift our hips up toward the ceiling for a close stance. So our feet are together, forward fold here. And taking about 3 deep breaths here. And then go ahead and start to walk those hands forward. We're going to come into a plank pose first. And then we're going to drop those knees down into a modified plank. Then we're going to lower ourselves all the way down, bringing those elbows close to the body, leaving your hands underneath your shoulders. We're going to lift up into a little mini cobra first. And then we're going to exhale down. And then we're going to inhale and come up into that little cobra again. See if you can come a little further this time. And then exhale down. Inhale, lift up into cobra. See if you can go a little bigger. And then exhale down. Again, you know the routine here, so inhale up into cobra. Exhale down. Last one, inhale up into cobra. And exhale down. Working yourselves onto your elbows. We're going to come into Sphinx pose. So now that we've kind of warmed up that abdominal wall, we're going to go ahead and press those elbows down into the mat, pulling those elbows toward our bodies, releasing the rib cage. Again, thinking about if your shoulders were a gate and your heart was coming through the gate, opening that heart space. Again, taking about 3 deep breaths here. And lowering ourselves down to the mat, bringing our hands underneath our shoulders once more. We're going to push up into either plank or modified plank, so either way. And then we're going to go ahead and tuck those back toes if they're not already tucked. Come up into our full plank, and then shift our hips back, coming into downward facing dog. For those of you who downward facing dog is not accessible to you, feel free to bend your knees and come into a child's pose. Either way is just fine. So from downward facing dog, we are stepping that left foot forward, coming into, lifting up into a crescent lunge. If you are in child's pose, you're going to come up onto your knees and step forward, and then lift into crescent pose. And then go ahead and take both hands all the way back down to the mat, coming into our runner's lunge once more. This time we're going to blade that back foot so our feet are perpendicular to each other. And then we're going to go ahead and lift, this time opening up into warrior two. Go ahead and straighten that front leg, drop the back arm, allow the front arm to go all the way up toward the ceiling for exalted. Taking a few deep breaths here. We're going to release that arm down. And just like we started, we are going to take those hands behind us, interlacing the fingers, pulling down at the spine, opening up that chest. And then I'm going to invite you to bend that front knee deeply, and you're going to pin that front shoulder to that front knee as you allow the back arms to come up overhead for humble warrior. Holding here. And releasing those arms down as you stand up, straightening that front leg again, bringing that front arm up toward the ceiling once more. Back arm is down for support. And go ahead and frame that front foot as you bend the knee. Allow that back heel to come up once more. This time you're stepping that front foot back to meet the left. And then you're pushing yourself back into downward facing dog, or you're bending your knees and coming down into child's pose. So taking a few recovery breaths here. When you're ready, you're going to step that right foot forward. If you're in child's pose, you're going to come up onto your knees and then step forward with that right foot, then lift into crescent lunge. Thinking about releasing that tailbone down, and taking both hands all the way down to the mat, bending that front knee deeply, coming to runner's lunge, and then blading the back foot. So we're turning the foot sideways back there. Once your feet are set, lifting up, opening up to the side, coming into warrior two. Then straightening that front leg, dropping the back arm, reaching high with that right arm. Again, thinking about opening up that chest. And then dropping that right arm down. We're going to go ahead and interlace the fingers behind us, pulling down at our tailbones. Open up the chest, looking up if you like. Then bending that front knee deeply, pinning that right shoulder to right knee as you allow the back arms to come up overhead for humble warrior. When you're ready, you can release those arms, lifting up, straightening that front leg, reaching up with that right arm again. Then taking both arms all the way down to the mat, bringing that front foot, allowing the back heel to turn up toward the ceiling, stepping back with that right foot, and then shifting the hips back. You're coming into either downward facing dog or child's pose. Taking a few deep breaths here. This time we are stepping forward with the left foot. So again, if you're in child's pose, you're kneeling and then stepping forward. We're stepping that back leg in slightly, and then straightening both legs, coming into triangle pose. And breathing deeply.
Get the right page.
Get the right page, exactly. I was like, prayer, we're not ready for prayer yet. Although maybe some people are, I don't know. When you're ready, we're going to bend that front knee slightly, stepping the back foot up to meet the right foot. Bringing those feet together again, coming into our closed stance forward fold at the front of our mats. See if you can release your hips up toward the ceiling a little further, deepening the stretch in that hamstring. And taking that right foot back behind you, stepping back into that runner's lunge once more. We're going to step the left foot back, coming into our plank pose, and then either dropping down, and you're going to take that child's pose, or lifting the hips, coming into downward facing dog. Checking in with your shoulders here. Our shoulders have provided a lot of support to us throughout today already. Just making sure that you're engaging the back side of your shoulders and not just the front side. And then when you're ready, you're going to step forward with that right foot this time. Again, if you're in child's pose, you're coming up to your knees first and then stepping forward. Then bringing that back leg in slightly, straightening both legs, coming into triangle pose. Taking a couple deep breaths here. And bending that front knee slightly, stepping the back foot up to meet the right. And coming into that close stance, forward fold. Again, shifting those hips up towards the ceiling to deepen the stretch. And then bending your knees deeply, putting your hands on your knees. And then very slowly rounding yourself up. So here we're going to heel toe our feet out about hip width apart again. And then we're going to inhale both arms up overhead. Bringing your hands together, you can either leave your palms together or you can interlace your fingers if you would like. We're going to lean off to one side as we exhale. And then pause for a few deep breaths. Coming back to center, inhaling, and exhaling off to the other side. Taking those deep breaths. And coming back to center, releasing those arms down. Go ahead and do a few shoulder rolls if you need to, or shake those out a little bit. We're going to go ahead and reach our palms all the way up in front. Inhale all the way up toward the ceiling. Turn our palms toward the front. And then bend our elbows to bring those in line with our shoulders. This is cactus pose. From here, you're going to think about drawing those shoulder blades together so your elbows are going to come back a little bit further. Inhaling and opening up that chest. If you'd like to look up, you can. And then releasing that all the way down. And kind of shaking out those arms if you need to. We're going to do our chest expansion again. So interlacing our fingers behind us, pulling down at our tailbone, opening up the chest. And then from here, hinging at our hips, allowing those arms to come up overhead as we fold forward. If you need to, you can kind of bend one knee at a time, allowing those hands to kind of roll off to one side and then the other. Or if you just want to stay in the center, you can too. And then releasing those arms all the way down. Allow that blood to flow back into those hands. Bending your knees deeply. We're going to put our hands on our knees and round up. Nice and slow. We're gonna come into some leg lifts here. So this is a little bit of a balancing posture. So if you need to move toward a chair or a wall, feel free to do that. And then, we're gonna switch our weight to our left foot. We're gonna draw that right knee forward. We're gonna take our hands out to the sides for balance. If there's a different position, if you need them out to the side or something else, heart center, feel free to do that. And we're gonna see if we can take that right foot just straight out in front of us. Holding for 3 breaths. 1, 2, whoops, 3. And then release that down. Yay, it's just a drink. Everything's okay. No worries. So we're going to take that stance again, this time shifting our weight to our right leg, palms down to either side, drawing that left knee forward. And then from here, see if you can bring that left foot forward. Again, holding this for 3, 2, 1. Bringing that back in, and then stepping out to the side, shaking out those legs. We're gonna come into a little yogi squat. So first we're gonna kind of take a little bit wider stance with our feet about 45 degrees out to either side. We're gonna let those hips drop down in between our legs here. And putting your hands on the mat for a little bit of support, you can kind of work yourself into this position or just rock side to side, whatever feels most comfortable to you. If you have it available to you and it feels really good to stay here in the center, you can bring your hands up to heart center. And if you want a little added challenge, you can try to take your hands behind you, interlacing those fingers, and then opening up that chest. If that's not accessible to you today, then feel free to stay in one of these other positions. All of those are doing really good work in your body. All right. So then we're going to go ahead and work ourselves back into laying, not back, we're going to come laying down on the mat. So if you want to lift your hips out of this position, kind of heel toe your feet together, you can bend those knees deeply and then untuck your toes and then kind of lean yourself onto the mat, laying down. If you like, you can bring your knees into your chest and rocking back and forth across that low back to start. And coming back to center, release those feet down to the mat. Taking those arms down to either side. And let's just check in with our bodies for a moment. Thinking about kind of what we talked about this morning with our emotional life, so to speak. I have something to read here. This is from a book that is written by Dr. Becky Bailey, and it's from an organization called Conscious Discipline. And the title of this is The Answer to the Unregulated Life. And she writes, every conflict starts with emotional upset. To solve any problem, we must manage the emotional upset first, and then move graciously into a conflict resolution process that produces win-win solutions. Most of us can't make it through the emotional upset to resolve much of anything. We stay stuck in the problem and wedded to our upset, searching outside ourselves for anything to make us feel better. We give our emotional selves away with comments like, look what you made me do. Look how you made so-and-so feel. We make others responsible for our internal emotional states. We say things like, you're driving me nuts. You're disrupting the learning for all the other students in this classroom. And we cling to the idea that others must change for us to feel happy or peaceful, meaning we must control others instead of connect with them. I think we all know how well that has worked for us in the past. Self-regulation is the foundational component to emotional well-being and lifelong success. Self-regulation is the conscious and unconscious ability to regulate our thoughts, feelings, and actions in service of a goal. So as we continue to check in with ourselves here, again, thinking about our emotional lives, the way that we talk to ourselves, the way that we calm ourselves, the way that we create space for ourselves. Take a few more deep breaths here. And then we're going to go ahead and I'm going to invite you to take your feet as close to your body as you can. They're still hip width apart. Our arms are down alongside our bodies. Our shoulders are worked away from our ears. Then we're going to press our feet into the mat as we lift our hips up toward the ceiling for bridge pose. Checking in here that our knees are not splitting out to one side or the other. They're directly over top of our ankles. Our core is engaged. We feel the tightening of the backside on our hamstrings and in our low back and mid-back space. But our hearts are still softened and open. Our shoulders are still softened away from our ears. And then on your next exhale, go ahead and start to come down one vertebrae at a time. And then drawing those knees into your chest, go ahead and rock back and forth across that low back space. So when you're ready, we're going to release those feet back down to the mat. We're going to take our feet a little further away from our bodies this time. Again, checking in with your pose here, making sure that you're positioned with your shoulders away from your ears, arms alongside for support. Pressing your feet into the mat. You're going to lift your hips up toward the ceiling once more. And then if you can, here, we're going to see if we can shift the weight to that left foot. And then see if we can reach that right foot out away from our body or up toward the ceiling. Either way is just fine. Releasing that back down to the mat. We're going to go ahead and come all the way down, releasing the spine, releasing the hips. And then bringing those knees into chest, rocking back and forth across that low back. And one more time, we're going to come back to center, release the feet down to the mat. They're going to be about the same distance away from your body as they were before. Again, lifting the hips, pressing the feet into the mat. Coming into bridge pose. This time shifting our weight to that right foot if we can. And seeing if we can lift that left leg forward or up toward the ceiling. Either way. Taking a breath. And then release that foot back down. Go ahead and release the spine down to the mat. Relax those hips, bring those knees to chest, and one more time, rock back and forth across that low back. We're gonna do a little spinal stretch here. So go ahead and take your arms out to either side. Drop the knees off to one side of the body. Making sure that you don't have anything in the way like I do. Taking a nice deep breath. And taking one knee at a time back to center. And then dropping those knees off to the other side. Leaving those knees stacked on top of each other. Arms out to either side. Checking in with your breath. And bringing those knees back to center. We release those feet down to the mat. Coming into our very last bridge pose. So here, if you can, I'm going to encourage you to do the same thing that we've been doing all along through our practice. We're interlacing our fingertips behind our tailbones and pulling down at our tailbones, and then also lifting into bridge pose. So you'll have to lift up into bridge pose probably first, or at least start that process, and then bring your hands behind you on the mat, clasping those and then pulling down, opening up your chest. And releasing those hands, allowing those arms to come alongside. Go ahead and bring the spine one vertebrae at a time back down to the mat. We're going to extend one leg at a time all the way down to the mat. And we're going to move into what we call reverse Superman. So if you remember in Superman pose, usually we're on our bellies, we're reaching our hands out in front of us and then lifting our feet and our hands off of the mat. So here we're going to bring our arms down alongside our bodies. We are going to lift our arms up off the mat, and then we're going to roll up, bringing our shoulders and head off of the mat. And then if you can either bring one leg up at a time, doing the reverse Superman this way, or you can try to lift both feet off the mat, engaging your core. You can hear my voice shaking as I'm doing that. Again, doing just as much as you can or as feels right in your body today. One more breath and release that all down. Let's go ahead and take a full body stretch, arms up overhead, fingers to one wall, toes pointed toward the other wall. Inhale deeply. And then go ahead and release those arms all the way down to your sides. Very good. We're going to roll over onto our tummies for a moment. We're going to do a little pillow with our arms for our heads here. And we're going to bring our feet up toward the ceiling as we bend our knees deeply. And then just windshield wiper those feet back and forth, releasing any tension you feel across your low back space here. And then if you would like, you can come back to center, release those feet all the way down to the mat. And either you can stay here as your final relaxation pose, or you can roll back onto your back and come into final relaxation pose on that side of things. And as you rest there in that final relaxation position, got a few more things for us here. So that self-regulation process is the foundational component to emotional well-being and lifelong success. And the way that we move through that self-regulation process is to identify where we are, to calm ourselves down in the midst of whatever body state or emotional state that we are in, to recognize what we're feeling, to choose in that moment what we're going to do with those feelings or with the moment that's presented to us. And then if there is kind of a problem in that, then we solve from that place. And all of that, when we practice it, it starts to take just a few minutes, honestly. But it can be kind of hard at the beginning when we're trying to practice it. It might take us a little while to get through it, and that's okay too. So I'm going to actually say a little prayer for us as we're in this relaxation position. And then we'll take a few moments of quiet, and then I'll bring us back together. God, thank you for emotions. Thank you that you demonstrate those emotions to us and that you show us healthy ways to express those things. God, we so long to come into greater alignment with you and who you are. So Lord, we just ask that you would gift us with calm, with the ability to use our breath to come into that state of calm and peace. Or to be able to identify where we're at, but then also to get to a place where we can distance ourselves a little bit from the experience of that. Or would you continue to create space for us so that we can choose, so that way we can move forward? And would you help us to experience that physically in our bodies today? It's in you we rest. Amen. So we'll take just a few moments of quiet, and then, like I said, I'll call us back together in just a moment. Ready, you can start to wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, roll to one side, and then gently push yourself up to a seated position. And to close today, we're going to take our fingertips to the mat. We're going to inhale our arms up overhead, and then we're going to do a noisy sigh out as we release our arms down. Very good. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Good.